Hello and welcome. In this recording, we're going to do a quick demo of our May Make and Take that we had in the fourth quarter of 2022, where we focused on some spring cleaning tips. So if you're like me, this time of year gets a little crazy, end of year preparations, looking forward to summer and just some of that goodness, but it's also towards the end of the school year where you've probably accumulated a lot of things and maybe not necessarily had a lot of time in the last few weeks of the school year to organize and stay ahead of those bits and pieces. So hopefully by the end of this session today, you have some helpful tips for staying organized and getting things ready to go for next school year and ready for summer so you can relax and recharge. Whether those are in-person tips for your physical classroom or your digital environment, our learning management system, or Google Drive. So we have a little bit of tech tips today, but also some non-tech tips as well. So if you're looking for a little bit of those different variety of tips, you should have them. So the idea for today is that you'll kind of support your executive functioning skills. So we're always looking for those UDL connections. And when it comes to spring cleaning and staying organized, that really supports your executive function skills. If you're thinking, well, what's executive function skills? Executive functioning skills are really what help you do your tasks every day, from staying organized to completing a task, to knowing what meeting you have to go to knowing what lesson you're doing, what materials you have to have out for that lesson. All of those are involving your executive functioning skills. And they're really life skills that you are constantly honing and developing throughout your time. And in terms of the UDL guidelines, the executive functioning really only shows up in one tiny little space on the UDL guidelines. It's in the action and expression. It's in the bottom right corner. However, really these skills are across all of the other parts of the guidelines because you really need to develop these skills in order to get excited and motivated to learn or engaged. And you need to have different coping skills and tools in your executive functioning toolkit to be able to understand and comprehend the content, which is really in that representation category. So ultimately, you have a couple of different resources you might need to have handy today. If you are viewing this session, then you probably already have Google Chrome browser open, but you will want to have Google Chrome as your browser of choice for this. It's also helpful if you have these slides pulled up. They are linked here with the tutorial video, so you should be able to pull those up too. And it's also helpful if you have a Google Doc as well, if you're wanting to kind of tinker and write things down, or have a paper note-taking sheet as well. So your to-do list for today is to learn tips and tricks when it comes to spring cleaning, to make a slide sharing a personal tip that maybe you have benefit from or one that you are planning to do, and then ultimately take some spring cleaning tips from others who have attended this session and contributed to our shared slide deck of spring cleaning tip ideas. So if you're thinking again, the why here, executive functioning skills, all of these different pieces that I have on the screen here really relate to executive functioning skills. So these are great things for you to develop as an adult, as a staff member here in the district who works with children or who maybe supports other staff members. These are also really helpful things to help your students. And really, you can use a lot of these tools that we go over today to support your students too. So these are helpful things for you as well as your students. So kind of a two birds with one stone type of benefit here. And if you're thinking, what are executive functioning skills? Everything that I have on the screen right now is an example of an executive functioning skill or support. So if you've ever used a Bookmark Bar on your browser to save a website that you know you want to go back to, that's an example of something you're trying to do to help your memory and stay organized so you can find it more quickly next time. Folders and Google Drive is another helpful way. The little Post-it note here, whether you're writing Post-it notes on physical paper lists or if you're using Google Keep, which is a little icon I have there for virtual sticky notes, also executive functioning skills, a checklist there, a to-do list, and then a backpack. If you have a bunch of folders or compartments that you're using to organize different pieces, those are all examples of executive functioning skills. And there's all different kinds of executive functioning skills, and that's a whole different presentation, but just know that these are really important for you to stay organized and to focus. So as we transition into this, let's think to ourselves here. Where do you feel like you need to declutter the most? Maybe you're joining this session today because you have a very specific focus and you know, like maybe my Google Drive needs some help and I need to go through and kind of fix some of those different pieces there. If you haven't thought of a specific focus, kind of take a few minutes here. You can pause the video and think about those now. And then I want you to think, what are some strategies that maybe you have used in a different area related to that area that might be helpful to others? Because a part of a make and take session is that you share something, so we all benefit from that. So what is something that you could share? And then also, what are some things that maybe you can share with your students too? So think about an area that you would like to learn about, and then maybe think of something that you can share so others can learn from you. And now we're about to get into it. So if you've attended a make and take session before, this slide deck that I have right here is really your master slide deck, because you can get to this next deck that I'm about to open. So this next slideshow is one that you'll have edit access to. So with that being said, know that you can edit this, you can manipulate the content. I do ask that you only edit a slide that is blank. Do not delete or write over someone else's content, just because the benefit of this presentation is that we all share and contribute and learn from each other. And it's not cool if something gets deleted, right? So what you're going to do is share your tip, tool, or idea here on this slide deck. And I'm going to go over a few examples here for inspiration, and then I will go through and do this activity with you. So if you're thinking, well, I need a few minutes to brainstorm, that is perfectly fine. You can be doing that while I go through a few examples. And what I would like to do is to grab a blank slide, add your spring cleaning tip to that slide. Make sure you add your name if you feel comfortable doing that, so we can give you the shout out. So if someone has specific questions, they know that you're the expert who contributed that. And then if you have the ability to add some specific websites or tools or tutorial resources, if you've found one on the internet before or have used one, try to link those, just so that we can all benefit and grow and learn from those. And it's another helpful resource for all of us viewing this session asynchronously to lean back on. All right, so I'm going to open this slide deck here, and we're going to go over a few examples. Okay, so here is an example of a spring cleaning tip that you can use. So this is one that I contributed and is one that I use all the time. I like to make checklists just because it makes me feel a sense of accomplishment. And like, even if I'm having a day where I'm like, wow, I don't feel like I've been very productive today, making a checklist kind of helps you kind of tackle that feeling of doubt and really feel like, yes, I have accomplished quite a bit, even if it didn't feel like it. Sometimes I definitely do add items onto my checklist just to cross them off, but whatever floats your boat, whatever works. So you can actually do that digitally now. And it used to kind of be a pain before. The only Google resource you could use to make a checklist used to be Google Sheets, which I like Google Sheets, but it's not something that I would necessarily use every single day. I'm someone who can be a little intimidated by spreadsheets, just because I would say that I'm more of a English language arts brain type of person. But I did like that feature in Sheets. I love now that you can have that feature in Google Docs. So Google Docs has a checklist feature. So that's my little tip here, is that before you even dive into all of your spring cleaning, write a checklist for yourself, write a list of things you know that you want to do, so you can stay focused as you're going through those different cleaning tasks. Whether that is organizing bins in your classroom or throwing away some of your old papers you had over the year, folders of, blank spare copies for absent days. Those are some things that you can do. And the checklist feature on Google Docs is really easy. Everyone has this available to them, staff and students. All that you need to do is open a Google Doc. And then if you watch my animated picture here, it is a little list button that is right beside the bulleted list icon. So you click that, it makes the little check boxes. And as you go through and type your list, you can click in that checklist, and there you go. It crosses them off, so you have that there to go. You could print that if you would like, but the nice thing about it being digital is that you can always access it on a mobile device, a Chromebook, laptop, home computer, whatever you're deciding to use. That's kind of the benefit here of this type of resource, is that it's digital. So if you're like me and you happen to accidentally throw away or lose paper checklists, this is a way that you won't necessarily be able to lose it, because it's always there in your Google Drive. All right, the next tip here is shared by our wonderful technology director, Nick Williams, and that is helping organize your email. So before you transition to summer, it's helpful if you go through and kind of clean your email inbox. I know that towards the end of the school year, I always felt like when I was in the classroom, I was getting a lot of reminders about field trips and parent emails and just all of those different things from different departments. And that's usually when my folder organization structure in my email inbox got a little out of control, and I wasn't as good about staying organized on that. So what you can do in Gmail is kind of clean things up there through a label feature. So labels on Gmail is basically the equivalent of folders in our old email system, or if you use a different email system, similar type of concept. Gmail just calls them labels. And the nice thing with the label is you can color code them. You can also set it up to, before an email is technically read, it can already go through to a specific label. So for me, I have some emails that I've kind of flagged if they have certain keywords, then I want them to go to a specific colored folder or colored label. I have one that's called 360s because I get a lot of 360 emails. So I have that in a red label, and it's like 360 follow-ups. So as soon as an email is sent to me and it contains those words, it goes there. So I know, all right, when it's time for me to follow up on 360s in my day, then I'm just going to go to that specific grouping of emails, and they should all be there because it has those keywords always. Maybe you have some parent emails that you have communicated with parents this year, but you're getting a new class of students next year, so you don't necessarily need those, but you don't want to delete them. What you can do is move those into a label as well. Maybe it's past parent emails. Move them all there so your inbox is a little bit more clean and organized. You can even do that for committees as well if they have certain keywords in them, all of those different fun pieces there. So I have a tutorial guide that I linked here. I'm not going to go in and show you this on mine because it's the public type of training here, and I don't want you to see all the stuff in my inbox. But there is a guide there that Nick has created that shows you how to do that. So a helpful hint there. All right, some other helpful tips here. We have one from the wonderful Corey Williams. She's a UDL facilitator at our high schools, East, North, and McDowell. And what Corey recommended here is organizing your Google Drive. And I definitely need to take some of her advice because mine always starts off really strong at the beginning of the year. And then it kind of just fizzles out as I get busy and don't always follow up on staying organized and putting labels and names and things in folders. So Corey's tip here is that you can create folders in your Google Drive, and then you can add numbers, symbols, or even emojis like what she has done here for her family members. So it's easier for you to find those different folders. So the beautiful thing about that is you can even add color coding to them as well. And what that does is if you add characters and symbols, it puts them at the very top of your list of Google Drive folders. So if you're happening to access the same folder over and over again, you don't want to scroll through a whole list of folders. If you add the character, symbol, or emoji, it will put that at the top and just save you some time. I like to color code some of the folders too that I find that I'm using them often or I want to visually be able to find them pretty quickly. I do that as well. What I'm actually going to do is open up my Google Drive right now and just show you how to do that really quickly because we're here. So this is my Google Drive, and as you can see here, I have some that I've colored that are just some pretty important ones that I want to make sure I remember. And I've added symbols here for those different resources as well. Like we do resource adoptions quite a bit, so that's at the top. And then the LMS adoption is there as well. So if I wanted to add some color to this or change the name of it so where it has a character at the top and it's towards the top of my list, I can right click and do rename and put like an exclamation point there, and it'll be the second folder here on my list. And if I wanted to add a color here, I would just do change color, and I can make that colorful there. So that's just a helpful little tip there from Corey Williams, which is pretty fantastic. All right. So what we're going to do is just go into this shared slide deck where there's even more tutorials and examples here and where you can start to contribute your own. So again, just a disclaimer here, make sure that you're not editing over someone else's slide. I added tons of blank ones down the line here, so those are yours to grab and use, totally up to you. Some other tips that we have here that I'll go over really quickly before I add my own tip to this deck for you is backing up your files. So if you got a couple of emails about this earlier this 9 weeks and earlier this semester, then you know and you remember that our iDrives are going away here in BCSE here next school year. You still have some time, but iDrive was a way where we used to back up our files and access them. If your device happened to crash or you got a new device, you could always get to your files from your iDrive. Then you won't be able to access those anymore because on June 1st, your iDrives are going to be read only, so you can't back up files there. You can still access them, but not contribute. And then in October of this year, October 14th, you won't be able to access your iDrives at all. So there's a need to move files from your iDrive to a different place, and the place that we're telling you to move everything is your Google Drive. The same thing happens with files that are saved on your desktop. So if you were someone that likes to save folders or resources onto your computer's desktop, just so it's easy for you to find, then it is really important that towards the end of the year, or any other point during the year, up to you, I just feel like end of the year is probably helpful, that you go through and you save all of the files on your desktop to your Google Drive. Just because if your device crashes, if it has to get re-imaged, or if it has some other difficulty, then anything that's saved in your desktop is gone. It's wiped off your device. But if you save it in your Google Drive, it is there forever. It's there to stay, and you can access it on your new device whenever you get that. Or if your device is repaired, then you can access it on there from there. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. I have linked a tutorial here. But if you have something that is saved on your Google Drive or saved on your desktop, what I like to do is to go into a split screen mode like so. And if I have something that is saved on my desktop, I can drag and drop it over. If you want to save something over from your iDrive, you're going to go to your File Explorer here. And then iDrive is listed a little bit further down. And I can click and drag that over. Now, if you're thinking, I have tons of folders in my iDrive or I have tons of folders on my desktop, this is going to take me forever to drag and drop those over, then what I would recommend doing is you have a couple of ways you could do this. If you have a bunch of folders on your iDrive, you can drag the entire folder over and Google Drive will maintain that folder structure. It will recreate all of the folders that you have here, so you won't have to go and reorganize and do all of that over again. So that should hopefully be some relief. Same thing if you drag folders over from your desktop. If you are thinking, I have multiple folders and I just want to drag them all at once, you can maybe add a folder, a bigger folder, and put all those subfolders in it. So you just drag it over one time. But you can also do Control and hold the Control button and click. And if you're doing Control click, then I can drag all of those things over at once. So that's just another little helpful tip there for saving yourself some time as you do this. All right, we already went over this tip from Corey. Let's check out some of our other ones. So that is others. All right, so this one is making sure that you have your sync turned on for Chrome. So Google Chrome, it's actually different when you're signed into your browser versus just signed into your account. When you're signed into your browser, then it's tracking your history. If you make any bookmarks, it's going to remember the bookmarks that you have. You can create whole folders of bookmarks if you would like. So it's just helpful to make sure that you're signed into your browser, just so, again, if you have an issue with your device, it gets re-imaged, or if you're wanting to, access your bookmarks that you have created on your school device on a home computer, then it remembers that. And all you have to do is just sign into your browser. So to do that, all you have to do is, I'm going to move my little camera here. If I go to the top corner of my device, I have my X window here to close my browser. And then I have this little button here. And this is how you know you're signed into your browser. It will tell you that you're signed in if you have your account here. You want to make sure that sync is turned on. And after sync is turned on, then you're good to go. And if you wanted to access this again at a different point in time on a different device, and you would just follow those same steps over again and sign into your browser. The benefit of that also is that you get some of your BCSC extensions here when you're signed in, so that you can benefit from those as well, because we push out some of those to your device when you're signed into your browser. All right. Other tip here from Corey Williams is your Chrome Bookmark Bar. So she says another thing that you can do is use emojis and use little icons here to help your bookmarks bar stay more organized. So basically, I'm going to show you an example here. When I make bookmarks here, there's some that I like to have pinned across the top, but your browser is only so big, so you can only have so many that are listed here. If you want to have more across your top banner here on your device, then what you can do is technically go through, and if you have your bookmark there, you can edit that bookmark, and I can delete all of the text here. I'm actually gonna do that for a different one. We're gonna do that for Nova. I can delete all of the text there. So then it just shows that little PBS icon, and I can have even more bookmarks show up. So I can do that for all of those. I could add emojis if I wanted to. It just makes it a little bit easier for you to have even more bookmarks across the top here. If you're wondering, how do I make a bookmark? This was already a bookmarked page, but if I go here to 360, and let's say that I want to bookmark the 360 page, which probably is something that I should do, I can click the star button here at the top, and I can decide where it goes. It can go to my bookmarks bar, which is across the banner I just showed you. I can even put it in a folder if I would like, totally up to you. I have a few that are here from when I was teaching, but then also just some tech tips one. And that is how you make your bookmarks. And then you can go through and kind of follow Corey's tip here, where you delete the text so you can have even more across your banner. All right. Other things you can do is also removing some of your Chrome extensions. So if you get a little extension crazy like me sometimes and you're thinking you just want to try some out or see how they are, the cool thing with Chrome is that you don't have to have all of these extensions if you find there's one that maybe you don't like. You can always go through and delete those. So while extensions are super helpful, sometimes they can slow down your Chrome browser in your computer, depending on the number of extensions you have and how many you're operating at one time. If I wanted to delete an extension that maybe I'm not using as much, I can easily do that just by going to my extensions menu and clicking remove. So if I go to my extensions menu, it does look a little bit different than it has in years past. It's this little grayish black puzzle piece at the top here. I'm a little bit off to the right from my browser sign in. So if I click that, it shows you all of the different ones that I have on my account. And if there's one that I'm not using a whole lot, then what I can do is delete that. So if I click this little button here, I can remove from Chrome and then it's gone off my browser. And if I ever want to go back and install it again, I totally can, but I can remove that if it's one that perhaps I'm not using a whole lot. And we have a little screenshot here to show you how to do that. All right, and moving on along, another tip here is one from Laura Ousley. And this is really helping you kind of take some of the pictures that maybe you've captured throughout the school year of your students and putting them in a nice organized place. So if you happen to take a lot of pictures of students doing different projects in your class or maybe different lessons or resources that you've made throughout the year and you're wanting to use those in your summative or just for personal use, then it's really helpful if you upload those into Google Drive, and you can even upload them to Google Photos or even put them on a Google slideshow. So it's a little, slideshow end of school year scrapbook. So I used to actually do that for my summative. I would take some of the pictures of my lessons and put that as artifacts for my evaluation. But I know it'd be helpful for you to just do this as, an artifact for your students to have. Maybe you make ones for different class periods or for different groupings of students, and you give them that as a little keepsake memory there, and they have access to it if it's in Google Drive as well. So that's kind of a little fun one from Laura Ousley, and you can always delete those from your phone after you have uploaded them into Google because they're in the cloud at that point and they're all saved there and good to go. Another tip here, and this is one that I need to do really badly, so I'm glad that Laura put on here, is getting rid of all your untitled documents in Drive. So I am very bad about making a document or just opening a blank one and using that for like a demo, like a tutorial like this, and then never naming that file. So I'm sure I have hundreds of unnamed files or untitled files in my Google Drive. So if that is the case, what you can do is open up your Google Drive, and the search bar across the top here is your advanced search menu. And what I'm going to do is just search for untitled. And it's going to show me all of the untitled. Oh, I actually don't. Oh, never mind. It's still loading. I was going to say I don't have that many. Yes, I do. There's a lot. Oh boy. So if you want to delete some of those, all you have to do is select them, and there's a little trash button here. If it's ones that you want to keep, what you can do is open that file or right-click it to rename so it's a more accurate name of what that particular resource is. So that's another way to kind of clean and organize things here. Oh my goodness, there are so many. So yeah, I need to take Laura's advice and go through and do that myself. All right. I kind of already said this one, but if you have a lot of files that are also called copy of or copy of a copy because you just keep making copies of things, another thing you can do is also go through and rename those files as well. So again, just right-clicking that file and renaming. Another tip on here is kind of fine-tuning your Google Drive as well. And that is adding a shortcut to Drive and starring files in Drive. So these are two tips that I wish I would have known about a long time ago, because there are some files that I open often because they're for committee meetings or for regular meetings I have with different groups. And I was having to go through and search through my Google Drive to try to find those every single time because I wasn't the owner of those files. So for example, I have a tech department meeting once a month on Wednesdays, and I'm not the owner of that file. Someone else in our department is. So I have to search for that every single time. And I didn't know that there was a faster way for me to organize that. So what you can do is star the file or add a shortcut to Drive. So adding a shortcut to Drive is what you do if it's a file that maybe you're not the owner of and you want to put it in one of your folders. It gives you the capability of doing that, even though it's not a file that you are personally the owner of and creator of. So what you can do is search through your Drive and find that file. So I'm going to find an example of that. And what I can do here is, this is the file that I know that I am not the owner of, but I want to be able to access it pretty often. I can right click, and if I star it, then I can jump to it really quickly here from this starred menu here on the left-hand side. I will say that if you get kind of crazy going through and starring a lot of different things, then it's not really going to be that helpful to you because it's just going to be a big list of starred items. So if you want to star something, I would recommend starring a folder if you want to leverage that, because folders are always shown at the top of the starred menu, or just keeping that a very limited list of things that you star if by chance you want to use that feature and you don't want it to become too cluttered. So the other thing you can do here is add a shortcut to Drive. So if I do add shortcut to Drive, what it's going to do here is open a little window where it's giving me the ability to put this in a folder or any folder I want. You can put this in multiple folders in Google Drive so that it's easier for me to find. So if I have one that is, let's just do this one, and I'm just going to do add shortcut. Then there we go. I've added that to that folder there where it's my technology coordinator folder. So I have all of my tech department things in there. That's a helpful way of kind of staying organized as well. Really great for meeting notes, committee meetings, if you happen to have those often, just easier to find. All right. All right, so here's another one. So sticky notes and tips. So you can do this a couple different ways. You can definitely do, just your physical sticky note in your classroom, but it looks like another tip that this individual added here is that you can do virtual notes. So if you're wondering what are some virtual sticky note software tools that are out there are a lot, but one that's within Google is Google Keep. So Google Keep is a free post-it note tool, and it is in the Google suite of tools, so it will save automatically and saves all your updates. You can access it on any device, including mobile devices. It has a really good mobile app experience. You can even make voice notes. But the nice thing here is this is an example of Google Keep. I can make checklists here. I can add different colors to it if I want. I can add other people to this note if it's maybe we're working together to spring clean. I can add someone else here. And I can even set up a reminder. And if I have it on my phone, it will buzz at me for when I want to receive notification to follow up on this task. And if I pin it, like what I did here, it's at the very top of my list. So here are just some different examples of ones that I've made. You can add pictures here. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Let's see some other tips. All right. So I'm going to add my own tip now so you can see what this looks like and so you can contribute to this shared presentation. So something that I would recommend doing, and this is actually not a technology tip, but I'm still going to add it, is cleaning up some of the different resources in your room. So something that I always remembered to do at the end of the year was tidy up, absent. All right. I always had a folder. It was really like a bin and it had a bunch of folders in it. Go to your absent folder. For all of the extra copies. Now, I would recommend that you put your resources on It's Learning so that you don't only have paper copies. They can access absent work digitally. But I like to do both just because I had some students who preferred to have that physical copy, and I wanted to make sure I gave them that option. So after you do that, you'll just want to recycle those. All right, so I can add a little picture here. Image, search the web. We're going to add that. We're going to put that there. And if I want to make my picture pop, We're going to drop shadow, and I'm going to put my name there. All right, and because I want to make sure that, I give something that's a little bit more of a technology tip, what I would recommend doing is writing up your It's Learning course. So that's helpful for really a couple of different reasons. Helpful for you. So whenever you go and you copy stuff into your course for this upcoming school year, because we will still have It's Learning for one more year, that you don't have to do double duty. Your work's already organized for you because the start of the school year can be totally hectic. The other piece that's helpful here is whenever we are transitioning to our new LMS, when the school board has approved it, we can export content from It's Learning into the new LMS. And we will do some of that for you as a tech department, but we will leave some of that up to you as the teacher if you have more stuff that you'd like to export. So it's helpful if you organize it now so that whenever we're going to that phase, that you kind of have things tidied up a little bit. And you're moving the content in the way that you would like it to show up in that new learning management system. So we're going to go to your It's Learning course through your resources tab and make sure all content organized into folders. And resources, so it is easy to find. Something that I like to do too is while I would usually organize some of my It's Learning content by date during the school year, that is not always the most helpful whenever you're going into the next school year because the dates typically don't line up. So I would go through at the end of the year, and when I had all of those different dates and pieces, I would keep the date as a part of the name, but I would also add like the unit name in there as well and like the sub lesson name. So if, October 1st through the 8th, that was like week 7 in my class. I don't want to have it just say week 7, October 1st through the 8th, if what we're studying that week is the geography of Japan. So what I would do is add geo of Japan and then put week 7 and then a short little abbreviation for the date. So whenever I'm copying that content into my next school year's course, it's a little bit more organized for me in that sense. All right, so added that there. And then we're just going to do, and then what I'm going to do here, because I have a tutorial made already, it's okay if you don't have one. If you just have a picture of what this looks like, that is perfectly okay. You can use the not Snagit, but you can use the snipping tool on your computer. If you just search here to take a screenshot, if you would like. If you have a picture of this in your It's Learning course, if you have a tutorial like me, I believe I have one on this, then I'm just going to add that here. All right, there we go. How to create It's Learning folders as well as rename them. So I'm going to copy that there. Add that in. I think I even have a video tutorial on here. So we are going to do it all. I'm also going to add a screenshot here of this guide. So this slide deck is a little bit more helpful for you all. All right. Hi, and welcome back. In this short video, I'm going to show you how to make a folder on It's Learning, which is, I don't like listening to my voice twice, so we're just not going to sit there and listen to me do that. And there's my screenshot. So insert video. Add that. And we're going to set this to where it's a manual play. So whenever you all decide to click through this presentation, it won't start automatically playing with my voice because that can be a lot sometimes. And, maybe you're in an environment where you don't need my voice in the background while you're doing your different tasks in your workplace. We're going to copy this over as well. Paste it. Ooh, that is a lot bigger than what I meant for it to be. We're going to add that tutorial. Actually, no, we're just going to keep the video. All right, there we go. So there's another tip there. All right, so that is what this spring clean is. You kind of go through and add your own tips. Again, if you are interested in earning some professional growth points for this, come back to this slide deck, the original one that you didn't have editing access to, where you got the editing slideshow link from. And we will make sure that you can get your PGPs from there. If you're curious about more make and takes, we have a couple that will be showing up in July. We have one of them tentatively scheduled right now for late July and maybe an additional one right before school starts in August. One of those will focus on redesigning your syllabus or your welcome newsletter if you're more of an elementary teacher to make it more visually appealing and graphic and more engaging and UDL friendly for your students to kind of set the right tone there for the first day of school. And then we'll also do one that is on newsletters. So we have a new communication tool for the 22-23 school year called Parent Square. And we'll talk about some of the different ways you can create newsletters and then share them out using that tool. Whether you like to use Canva or some graphic design tools to make your newsletter, you can upload those into Parent Square pretty seamlessly. So we'll be excited to show you some of those bits and pieces. So again, thank you for participating in this session. I'm excited to see your spring cleaning tips. Keep adding to that slide deck and share this with friends, family, students, anyone you interact with so they can spring clean and feel ready to go and ready to go into summer with confidence as well. Thank you.